Hey everyone, welcome back. It's me, Only Run Very Noob, bringing you more Bravo gameplay on the Talishar client. Today we are playing against Viserai. Not 100% sure how this matchup should go. Don't really play it a lot. Maybe that'll change. Let's just go back real quick to see how I sideboard. So I sideboard out Fate Foreseen, Zealous Belting, Sigil of Solace, and the Red Unmovable. I keep it a tight 60 because I don't think fatiguing is ever really the play against Viserai. There's some builds of Viserai that might even be trying to fatigue you and doing like a big OTK sort of kill. Well, I guess they're not trying to fatigue you, but they're just playing a bunch of defense reactions and waiting until they have like 30 rune chance and then just going way over the top of you. So I definitely don't like to fatigue them with like sigils and fates. I would rather have pummels and choke slams. Choke slams work against the Shrill, although without Rosetta Thorn I'm not entirely sure what weapon they will pick, and what weapon they pick definitely limits their other offensive options. If they go with Nebula Blade, I don't think they can really play Shrill well. But if they go with the Reaping Blade, they could play Shrill. Not to mention, like, if they're trying to block you out, you want more attacks. I do keep this Sink Belows just because it could be kind of nice to stop breakpoints. If they start turning to stuff like Meet and Greet or the one that makes you discard if you've taken Arcane, I'm blanking on the name of that card. But it's good for those, or just like a Shrill, or just anything that has like a Mauvrin Skies buff to it. Viserai is not very good on small hands, so I also like to tear asunder with a Nothos and pummel as well. It's kind of my thought process, but again, not like entirely sold on my plan into Viserai. Not a matchup I see a ton. And of course we bring AB1, because if you don't, you probably just die. They win the die roll and go first. We see they have Crowned Dominion, Reaping Blade, and Ironweave. Maybe Ironweave's kind of standard. Maybe you see a lot of Tunic or Carapace. I'm not 100% sure. Crown of Dominion definitely seems a little greedy. I think against decks like Bravo, they probably want to be using Providence to turn off our Command and Conquer once, and also just have more block value to stop like big dominated effects. You start off with a Mordred Tide, which is pretty good for them, and a Sonata. They pay into the Sonata, so they might be able to deal 2 Arcane here, which we can't stop with only AB1. They do end up hitting 2, and so we definitely want to stop as much damage as we can going second, because we get to redraw our hand. I'm not too sure that he's going to attack me with these rune chants. He probably just wants to bank them for later. He did get a blue Vexing Malice and a red Reek of Corruption, which is an interesting one. I don't think I see that card. I don't think I've seen that card ever. I'm not even entirely sure what it does. Anyway. So I'm thinking I want to dominate the Spinal Crush on my turn. So I'm probably just going to pitch this Command and Conquer. I know the Command and Conquer is pretty good. Oh, there's a Reek of Corruption. If you've played or created an aura this turn, it gains when it hits a hero, they discard a card. And it costs 2 for only 4. So I think I'm going to pitch the Command and Conquer to AB1 here, leaving me with 2 blues and a Spinal Crush. And if they end up attacking me, then I'll just block with other cards and pitch other cards. But we see another Sonata here, which is quite good for them, because it doesn't use up their rune chance, but it's going to deal arcane damage to me, presumably. They pay into it to reveal 5, and they do end up hitting 2. So I'm just going to end up pitching a blue here. And then they attack me with a red Spellblade Assault, so this turn went very well for them. They're going to end their turn with what is this, 5 rune chance and still get to attack in for a bunch. I do think that I want to stop all 4 of these rune chants though. So I'm going to end up using the 2 floating, pitch the blue, and then block the Spellblade Assault with the Spinal Crush. So our plan of Spinal Crushing them goes out the window, but we're not just going to let them get a bunch of free damage on the first turn here. We just got to have hope that our deck will serve up a threat. But all in all, pretty good turn 0 from them. They Sonated twice and hit 2 cards twice with a Mordred Tide, and still got to end with 5 banked rune chants. We draw a 4 blue hand, but luckily one of them is a threat in the Terra Sunder. Don't think I want any of these cards in my arsenal, so I'm probably just going to make a Surge and then Terra Sunder for 7. And that is what ends up happening here. Hoping that they don't have a defense reaction in Arsenal. But there's maybe a chance that I know what the card in Arsenal is, because it's one of the cards that they revealed to the Sonata. They end up giving us all their armor, including the creepers, just to stop this. So they must have a pretty good hand coming back. We have 2 blues, Starstruck, and a Sink Below. It would be kind of nice to just be able to block with the Sink Below and throw the Starstruck back, forcing them to block with a bunch of cards, and presumably have like a weaker turn. And with that plan, I definitely am looking to just take these 5 rune chants and not pitch into Arcane Barrier for them. And that was the card in Arsenal, was the Reek of Corruption. So it's only 4 damage, and it has a Mauvrin Skies on hit, which are both kind of nice because I can just stop that with the Sink Below and take the 5 rune chants. I'm expecting them to just Reaping Blade after this with the 1 floating, and then Arsenal their last card. They do have the Revel, which adds another, what is that, 5 damage onto this. But I still feel pretty comfortable just taking this damage to be able to throw the Starstruck. Not 100% sure if it's right, but I feel like the Starstruck will make it so they don't even have a turn next turn. But we are already down like 17 damage, or 17 life. And them just blocking 3 cards and arsenaling something might be fine for them, especially if we just don't draw anything that we can do. They block with another Revel, which is good, and a red Mauvrin Skies. We draw just like an awful hand. 4 reds. So we got to pitch 3 reds into hammer for 6. And if we want the hammer to be for 6, we got to pitch both Crippling Crushes away. So this is quite awful, and maybe one of the reasons why playing the Starstruck isn't good. Although if we would have like blocked out and not maybe just like Arsenal the Starstruck, this would also be kind of bad. But at least he would have a big hand to attack into it, and we would be able to utilize this on defense. There's potential he could have had a bunch of rune chants though, and with no pitch value in our hand, we would have just taken a bunch of damage maybe. So I do just hammer for 6 here, I'm pretty sure. And then Arsenal Sink Below. Really sucks, don't like my position, but they don't have any, they have like 1 armor block. So there's definitely a chance we can end up stealing this game. It just kind of sucks that we see 2 of our Crippling Crushes go to the bottom, because that's certainly an attack we would like to throw at them to steal a game back. They play Become the Arknight looking for a Sonata, which seems a little risky. I'm not 100% sure. They get 2 cards back. They reveal 2 attacks, 2 non-attacks, so they get a red Shrill of Skullform and a red Meet and Greet. And we have to take arcane damage, so their meet and greet's turned on here. So definitely expecting the meet and greet. We're going to sink below this, and I think I sink the pummel to the bottom because we can't use it at all. They play their third Revel, which has got to be very good for them here. So how do we want to defend this, and what do we want to do on our turn? Well, we can't do much on our turn. If we had a Surge, we could like throw a Crippling, but we would be taking like a ton of damage here to do that. This is 6 Rune Chants and then 7 coming in from the Shrill. So 13 total damage. I think I do want to Arsenal the Crippling Crush though, so I'm probably just going to AB 4 with 1 blue and 1 floating, and then block 3 on the Shrill and ending up taking 6. Luckily they have no Revels left. They played 2 and had to block with 1. But unluckily they got to like play 2 Revels on us in 4 turns. Which is just like a lot of damage. We have all our armor and they have barely any armor, so there's a chance we could maybe like steal tempo with this Crippling Crush we're going to put in Arsenal. Not going to use Armor Block because I'd rather save that for a Mauvrin Skies on hit, or maybe one of these other like 1-for-4 on hits. But you can't save it forever because they might just end up killing you with arcane damage, so you do got to get it out of the way a little earlier than you would in some other matchups. With the hand, so with Crippling Crush and Arsenal, I'm certainly wanting to make a Surge so that I can throw it off 2 cards to steal the tempo. And the only thing that really lets us do that is keeping a blue and a Command and Conquer here, and blocking for 6. The problem is they got a 5-card hand, and we're already down 14 life. But hopefully they just don't draw a great hand, and we can end up blocking 6 and maybe taking like, I don't know, 4 or less. To make a Surge and throw a Command and Conquer. Hopefully they also have like an Arsenal that Command and Conquer is threatening. And we see them actually just throw 6 here, which is almost perfect because we want to block 6. It leaves them with an Arsenal, which we get to threaten with Command and Conquer. They don't have Spellbound Creepers, so they're not even looking to do anything like that. Not 100% sure what their hand could have been, but probably just like a bunch of attacks without go again. Although they did pitch Mauvrin Skies, but maybe the Mauvrin Skies was their only blue or something. We caught kind of a lucky break there. They end up just taking the Command and Conquer and getting rid of this meet and greet in Arsenal. They play a Mauvrin Skies and then a Reek of Corruption, and this is 2 on hits, but only 4 damage, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to just use our armor. Like I was saying earlier, we do want to use our armor a little earlier than against other aggro decks, and this is the perfect thing to stop. And they Reaping Blade for 1 Arcane from the Rune Chant and 3. So this decision comes, do we want to Chokeslam an Arsenal with a Surge up, or do we want to just like preserve our life? And I think I kind of want to preserve my life, but there's a real argument for having like a threat in Arsenal after we're going to dominate a Crippling Crush on them. Because the dominated Crippling Crush presumably won't leave them with much offense. And while red chokeslam isn't like the greatest threat to play off of a big hand that we're presumably going to have, it's at least better than hammering. Like, it's an upgrade from hammering for 6 in case we draw like a complete blank. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's worth 3 life, because it's only 2 more damage than the hammer. So I do end up preserving my life. Looking for bigger threats, although we know 2 crippling crushes just aren't going to get played this game because we had to pitch them earlier. And I think 2 spinals are gone too. Yeah, maybe keeping the chokeslam would have been good, because with the surge, because we have a surge, we can make a surge and dominate crippling, and with a surge we could potentially even like tear us under the red chokeslam, which would be good. They end up just taking 11 and discarding 2 blues. Hopefully those are the only blues they have. And we end up drawing just like the perfect hand, right? It allows us to hopefully completely steal a turn cycle. We get 3 blues as well, so we get to dominate it instead of just like get him to block. So I'm almost willing to take like whatever damage here to dominate this Starstruck and hopefully steal the game away with dominating crippling backed up by dominated Starstruck. So they're threatening like 7 here, which would put us to 8. But like I said, like I'm totally fine with taking whatever damage I got to take here to dominate a Starstruck and hopefully steal a turn cycle. Put them down to like 6 if they have to take 7. And just hopefully do something from that point. If they have defense reaction and arsenal, we probably just lose, but we probably weren't going to beat that anyway. They end up blocking 4 and taking 6, which is a little interesting. Maybe they have like Runic Reclamation or something. Or maybe they're really hoping to draw it because we see them use their cash in. And play a Mauvrin Skies. Not good. Looking like they're trying to do something. Because we'd really like to just like pummel the hammer and maybe sneak in a kill. They play Rattlebones, but they don't have any attack in their graveyard that they can actually play under the effects of a Starstruck. They get Amplify the Arcanite. Maybe they think that Starstruck is equal or greater, but the attack has to be greater than the damage dealt. And just, if you've ever played with Starstruck on Talishar, it'll let them play it, but then it will just revert the game state. Interesting little bug here, it just keeps reverting back to the rune chant. So I enable chat and I tell them they can't play that attack because it's not greater than 6. And fast forward a little, and they end up just conceding the game on the spot there. This was kind of an interesting one. I'm not 100% sure if I would have won the game, but like had they played more appropriately maybe, because I guess they didn't want to just like go back in time that turn, because I tried to revert to the start of the turn and they just like denied it and then conceded. Yeah, they declined the undo request and then conceded. But with them being at 7 and us at 6 and us being able to threaten 10 damage on our turn, there's a chance we hammer for 6 and then they just like block 3 and take 7. And even if they do play around the pummel, if they don't block 10, we get to leak some damage in by pummeling, and then arsenaling a Thunderquake, and dominating the Thunderquake would probably kill them, because if they're at 7, let's say they block 6 and take 4 down to 3, they're probably just dying to like a dominated Thunderquake. But of course, we don't know what the next 4 cards were. It could have been another 4 red hand or something. So not 100% sure who would have won this game, but I definitely wanted to show it because at the beginning of the game, like the first 3 or 4 turns, I thought there was no way I was going to win this game or even be like in a position to win. But sometimes you just got to play to your outs, and being able to dominate a crippling and just raw dog a dominated Starstruck off the top is good enough to steal a game you otherwise had very small chances to win. You know, in a lot of game states, you'll probably only be like 5 to 10% to win because the game's just gone really bad for you. And it's important to know like what those 5% wins look like, because oftentimes the 5% win requires you to play in a way that might look a little aggressive or silly when being down like 14 life might incentivize you to not be super aggressive. So yeah, not that I know like the best way to go about this matchup. Maybe there's a chance that I could have like tried to be more defensive and run them out of good threats, because they have no Revel and Runeblood anymore, so there's no like Mordred Revel turns where they could really go over the top. There's a chance we could have blocked quite well and maybe pitch stacked like a second cycle. We were going to hit that 3 red clump though with crippling sink below at some point. So yeah, it's a very difficult game. This game is super fun, and it's very rewarding to play a lot and to just get better at your hero in the matchups. Viserai is one I'm hoping to see more because it's a matchup I don't really understand that well. And I also think it got quite a bit easier now that they're testing not having Thorn, because that's just going to be the reality of the format very shortly. So hopefully this was a fun one. I hope we all learned a little bit. I know I always do watching myself play these games. These videos are more for me than you guys, to be honest. Like, I just really love watching my gameplay and thinking about mistakes I made, thinking about lines I took and stuff like that. But of course, I post them for you guys as well. So hopefully we all learn a little bit. Hopefully it was fun. Comment, like, subscribe down below. And I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thanks for watching.